Hello boys and girls, and welcome to video 2 of the 30-day YouTube challenge. Today I want to talk about the brain. So people, when we often look at the human body, take it sort of for granted, and rightly so. To any person it can seem pretty straightforward on the surface, but the more we look into it, the more complexities seem to pop up. And obviously one of the biggest enigmas of our generation and many generations before us is what's in here, this mush of neurons. Our brain is a very complex organ. It seems that every part is connected to every other part. Synapses are communicating with every other synapse in this ball of neuron mush. So for simplicity's sake, scientists and neurologists have broken down the brain for idiots like me to understand Brain 101 into 3 different layers. And again, this is just a very schematic model. The brain is not actually divided into 3 different layers. It's way more complicated than that, but it's just to help us get a better understanding of its functions, of its functionality. So let's get started. We have layer number 1 sitting at the very bottom, at the base of the brain. So this is one of the oldest parts of your brain. We share it with animals that we have long diverged from, reptiles, so which is why it's called the reptilian brain. So the job of the reptilian brain is to act as the body's thermostat. It maintains homeostasis, maintains your body's core temperature. For example, if we get too cold, we start shivering, that produces heat. If we get really hot, start sweating. It maintains blood glucose levels. It is also responsible for hormone secretion, so it signals to other parts of your body that secrete hormones, and that's what enables it. And this ancient circuitry it's what forces animals to go seek out food, shelter, safety, mates, new and novel environments to explore. It's built very deeply into your brain, basically. And we humans today, we do not walk around with a lot of very active reptilian brains, because obviously you do not see a lot of savage behavior happening, like not a lot of animalistic behavior happening around us. I would like to assume, are rational creatures, and the reason why we do not walk around with very active reptilian brains is because we live in an era of abundance and we have all our basic needs met. Even that weird geek in your class, the weird kid in your class, has a sexual needs met by watching Neo Malkova videos and rubbing one out. Moving on to layer number 2, which is your limbic system. Your limbic system sits on top of layer 1, and I think it's the amygdala, which is it acts as the emotional center for the brain. And this is the part that lights up when you feel fear, whether it's real or illusionary through, say, a movie. It is what experiences anxiety. So people with anxiety have very active amygdalas. Also, the limbic system is responsible for a lot of other emotions as well. Anger, joy, love, all of them is basically the job of the limbic system, the amygdala. And obviously, like any other tool, the limbic system can be a good and a bad thing. For example, I write gratitude messages at night, and they help me basically experience a ton of joy and love, and it's just basically a very happy place to be in. And that obviously is the function of the amygdala. The amygdala makes me feel such strong emotions. And also on the flip side, when I have anxiety, and when I have bouts with anxiety, it is not a bad thing. It can be a very good indication to let you know that there's something out of whack. So you can work on finding out what it is and trying to fix it. But sometimes what happens is your amygdala and your limbic system can be in overdrive, and that happens often to a lot of people that that have anxiety, for example. And what it does is it can easily override the other 2 systems, system 1 and system 3, which I'll get to in a second. And obviously for a system, layer 2, that cannot differentiate between real and illusionary dangers, it can get pretty out of hand. So yeah, you gotta be careful with it. Moving on to layer number 3, the latest addition to our organs, the neocortex or the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is a very newly added layer to the brain. I think it was about 7 million years back when we first developed science of it. It emerged when we diverged from our common ancestor with the chimps. So that's when a prefrontal cortex is said to have originated. So the functions of the prefrontal cortex are language. So it's the linguistic center of your brain. It handles language. Helps you look forward into the future and plan ahead. An ability a lot of animals have, which is why scientists say that prefrontal cortex is what could potentially be the reason that sets us apart from other animals. Our prefrontal cortex is highly evolved compared to other animals, so that makes us human. Future planning, behavior regulation. So, for example, if you can remember how to act civilized, to remember basic morality, I would say, like not breaking the laws is the indication that you have a prefrontal cortex. And also the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which I think sits somewhere in the front of your brain. It's responsible for complex problem solving. So it's, if you've read Thinking Fast and Slow, it's what is very active when System 2 takes over. System 2 is a more deliberate, slow thinking approach in the rational brain. Yes. Now, why do I want to talk about the brain and why am I giving you this anatomy? It's because all of us are faced with a fight going on inside our heads constantly on a day-to-day basis, and that fight is essentially the prefrontal cortex going up against the amygdala and the hypothalamus. So your limbic system versus the prefrontal cortex. So what your limbic system does is it is associated with a sense of longing. So if you've ever felt FOMO, the fear of missing out, it's because of your amygdala. I mean, it makes sense. I'll tell you why. So let's say in caveman times, you felt that you were missing out on social interactions and you weren't as integrated in the group as you would like to be. That could potentially mean that the tribe is going to leave you, or either just not give you enough resources to continue your life and propagate your genes. That was a valid fear to be having for the amygdala and for your response to kick in and for you to do something about it. The amygdala also is associated with longing for, say, food. Binge eating is seems to originate from the amygdala because it's hoarding of resources. You fear that you're going to not have enough resources, so it's a fear response that you either binge eat, consume a lot of, say, drugs, very indicative of an active amygdala, and a ton of other things, right? All the bad, again, it seems like I'm associating all the bad things with the amygdala. I am. It is, again, like I said, it's a tool that can be, it's basically a double-edged sword. It could potentially save you because it's what gives you your fight and flight response, but also backfires sometimes. It has a bug where it could, for humans living in an era of abundance, it can be terrible because our longing never stops. We constantly want to have more, and it's because of the amygdala. And obviously that's a bad thing, whether it's drugs, whether it's food, whether it's almost everything in excess. And the prefrontal cortex fights back against it. Prefrontal cortex is what enables us to envision a goal in the future, and move towards it. And every time you stray away from a goal, your prefrontal cortex, you're not supposed to go there. You're supposed to move towards this because that's what you decided, right? That's the best path forward for you. And amygdala tries to stray you away from the path, and prefrontal cortex is what keeps you on it, moving towards the goal. So to put it simply, your amygdala is what tells you, hey, you should grab the last piece of cake. And your prefrontal cortex is like, no, I gotta head to the gym right now. That's probably not a good idea to be having that cake because I'll go over my calorie limit, let's say. And it's a battle that constantly rages in your head. So how do you suppress the longing of your amygdala? Pretty simple. You obviously want to strengthen your prefrontal cortex, and how do you do that? Activities such as meditation, mindfulness have been shown to drastically improve the activity of the prefrontal cortex. So it helps you make like better decisions, helps you really weigh things out. Meditation, mindfulness, getting good sleep, healthy food, very important, because if your energy levels are not high throughout the day, or at least maintained throughout the day, what happens is you have this phenomenon known as ego depletion. Ego depletion is basically decision fatigue. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have something planned throughout the day, right? And you're supposed to go through it. What happens is every time you make an active decision to stay away from, say, your cell phone because you do not have enough time. So eventually your brain tires out from, say, avoiding your phone and avoiding temptations, that eventually it does not have any willpower left to stay away from the phone, and you just give in. That is decision fatigue, and it happens to all of us almost all the time, which is why throughout at the end of the day, we are much more emotional than we generally would have been, because our rational decision-making brains have been tired. They've basically fatigued. They have lost all the ability to control the amygdala, basically. And another thing that you could possibly do to quell or at least suppress the amygdala is to get a goddamn schedule, because having a schedule and following it and making a habit out of it can be incredibly important for you to not have decision fatigue. Because if you're constantly deciding, oh, what should I wear, what should I be doing right now, what work should I be doing, by the time 2 p.m. rolls around, you'll be burnt out. You would not have any idea as to I do not want to do that, I do not want to do that. Your brain's going to be fried. So having a schedule already prepared, and you just going through it with relative ease, and that comes through practice. Obviously, there are obviously days that you're going to stay away from it, but if you make a habit out of it, in the long term, it's going to benefit you a lot. So yeah, I think I'll end over there. I went on like a very unscripted rant towards the end of it. I was just supposed to explain what the 3 layers do and like the fight between them. I did not think I'd be giving advice on here, because I definitely fall victim to my amygdala quite a bit. So yeah, thank you for watching. This is video number 2. I do not know why I keep saying that. Just end the goddamn video. I'm going to do that. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, drop a like. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I shall see you tomorrow.